Let's see.
She looks a lot more petite and frail.
Almost there. Should be good.
Okay, thanks. And it looks like we don't have Ryan or Leary yet. We'll go ahead and get started. First off, minutes. Larry, were you able to put together the minutes from last time?
No, I wasn't at the meeting, and I didn't know whether anybody had taken minutes. If nobody took minutes, then I can go back and watch the video and boost the minutes.
That was my oversight. You're so dependable that I just don't even think think about taking minutes. Because
Yeah, but I was in France, and there was no chance I was going to take minutes.
I know. Yeah. No, I don't think anybody took minutes.
Okay, I will go back and recreate the past.
Okay, I'm sorry. I appreciate you doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, Larry, when you're watching the meeting, don't look directly at the screen. You might see the people involved.
Great. We greatly appreciate your work, Larry, in all of these meetings. And apologies, that was my bad for forgetting that. So we'll hold off on reviewing minutes this month, and we'll do it the next time. Let's jump into the agenda. First, Arpa projects. Latest steps on Arpa projects, including where we are with websites, Civic Plus upgrade options, etc. Angela, do you want to lead the discussion?
I can. Actually, I think Will and Jay did quite a bit of work over the last week talking with the Civic Plus folks. So Will, I don't know if you want to update the group on what you were able to find out from them. And I think Jay also met with the gentleman, and we're in the process of collecting some data about the different options.
Okay. I mean, I shared John Pugh's letter. He and I had an hour-long meeting, and he is our new account representative, executive account representative, which was a surprise to me because they told me I would meet with someone else, and also to Jay. He's based in Florida, if I'm not mistaken, and he sells a lot of what has come to be known as the Civic Plus Engage platform, which is what I call the middle bear. And we are currently on the Civic's Open Drupal Engage platform, which is based on Drupal and is much less functional, or has much less functionality than this new platform that they are building and have built and have sold to a large number of municipalities. And I think in his
Will,
yeah.
I'm sorry. What was the name of the platform that we're currently on?
It's I may have the words a little jumbled, but the words in the name is Civic Plus Open Drupal Engage.
It's Drupal. Drupal is an Drupal is an open source content management system, just like Joomla, etc. And it sounds like they took Drupal and customized it heavily and are selling it as a service for governments.
Right, and this new platform, what I call the middle bear, and they have a larger version of it, but the middle bear is something that they're doing themselves, so it's proprietary. It's more proprietary than the Drupal or whatever it is, but so that platform has a lot of functionality, and in the email that he sent me about these two options for us, he sent links to towns in Massachusetts that are using it, so you can take a look at what they can achieve with it, and then a few links to other towns that are just using the platform that we're using. And in that email, he said that if we wanted to update the current platform, not go to the new product, that would be like a $5,500 engagement that would include a project manager to help us essentially define all of the requirements, and then the people that would, on their side, that would actually implement the changes. He didn't give any pricing for the larger platform, but the larger platform has a whole bunch of modules that these are extra cost optional modules that you can plug into it. And actually, I got a couple emails today, and maybe other people got the same emails about webinars related to these other modules that will be upcoming in the next week or two. So, that was what I learned from John. And do you have anything to add, Jay? You also spoke with John, I believe.
Yeah, I spoke with John actually today, and a lot of what you said was touched on as well. And it does, it really does look like that that second part there, the Engage platform. It may be something that we want to look at. It seemed a lot easier to utilize, especially for the team members in the town that need to go in there and make changes or update something or add a tab, add a new, page on there. It was very user friendly from what he showed me. And he's actually going to schedule another time with me next week to really, dig in and show me a little bit more about, the different features.
Now, is that their new platform?
It's their most current platform. I would say.
But it's not the Drupal platform.
It's not the Drupal platform.
The one you're developing in-house.
Yeah, apparently the Drupal platform was something that they kind of inherit, like they just took over.
They acquired a company in 2018.
Did he say at all, Jay, how hard it would be to migrate?
Yeah, actually, he did say that it would be very simple to migrate over. And we would, they would have, obviously, just like William said, they would have project managers that would be assigned to us, and we can start. I suggested that we create like a internal and external team together to get the input that we need to make sure that the site is not only suitable to the town employees, but also for mostly who it's for is for you guys, for the residents. So I want to include you guys, include any other members that we might think of that might want to chime in on it from resident side. And I know you guys kind of did a survey too to kind of get some of that information, so that might help us as well. And also, just like I said, create an internal team so that a person from each department to kind of communicate together and figure out what our needs are internally. And we had that conversation with John today as well. And I was just looking back at one of my emails to see if he gave me anything with pricing or anything.
He
said he was creating a proposal and he was going to be giving it to you, but it sounded like it wasn't there quite yet.
Yeah.
Matt, did we get formal approval from the Board of Selectmen to actually spend up to the ARPA limit? I mean, it doesn't sound like we might even need as much money as we thought we would, but
you have better knowledge. Yeah, I don't. I have zero knowledge of that.
Yeah, I don't. I'm gonna say this. I'm not 100% sure that even the select board has approved any of the ARPA money for our website project. They've kind of created the top 5 list, and I if I'm not mistaken, we were kind of in the bottom of that. It was a top 10 list, and I think we're at the bottom end of that top 10 list. In the top 5, they had other items in there, so I don't think so. But also, as you just said, I don't think it's going to cost us as much as we essentially needed. And also the fact is, that money that we were kind of looking for, that you guys were, looking for, was for a new website development, which most likely would have been in that range of 80 to 100 or maybe more. So this will definitely be a little bit, slipstream in a sense of getting us migrated over, change everything over. And it seemed very like a smooth type of operation in the sense of, they'll display it to us and let us test run it, see how it runs. If we don't like it, what can we change? What do we need to tweak and make it better for the residents and for ourselves? It was a very positive, meeting today. I got a lot from them, and they definitely bring, combined. I had this other gentleman in there too, combined over 10 years of experience with Civic Plus alone. So it seemed like they had some really good ideas and really good, things to present to us.
Will, you seem to have some concerns that we would need extra help if we move to the new version, like we would need additional resources to administer it. Was that based on what John told you or some other concern?
No, I guess, that arose primarily from the fact that when he was talking about it, it seemed like he was mentioning towns that are larger and have a larger IT staff than we do. Now, that is not based on familiarity with the product, and Jason probably has a lot more input from that angle, having seen more of this new product, and also more of its ability to be customized. And if it turns out that it's something that Jason would feel comfortable that other people would be able to create pages and such, then perhaps my fear is completely undeserved here. But the fact is that it does tend to it tends to be something that larger towns are using. But if it would fit our town as well, that'd be great. Jason, what's your feeling on that?
Yeah, I mean, it does not seem, from what I looked at when it came to the actual modules, and because he kind of gave me a quick look at the interface and how it looks, for a typical user and what they would use it for, it seemed very simple. It had a lot of features to make it kind of like snap and grab and click and just drag and drop type of situation, where it just made it simple for the user. There were other things in the background that could have made it more complex for me looking at it, but in most cases, the typical user, it was just a drag and drop, type in a name, and create away. So it seemed very simple to me.
Yeah,
And
I
also
guess
as well.
I guess one of the questions that I have is we seem to be focused right now on the engine, on the CMS, on the engine. But I guess the question I have is, what's the plan for updated design? I mean, we can move to a new CMS, but if we move to the new CMS and the website looks the same as it does now, then we actually haven't accomplished anything. So I'm assuming that part of this process has to be an update to the actual design of the website, the architecture of the website, and all of that. And that seems like potentially a bigger project, or at least as big as moving to the new engine.
So, to that, they had a lot. First of all, it's going to be a redesign entirely. That's first and foremost. It's not going to look like what we currently have. But from what I hear and understand, they kind of have that, cookie cutter approach in a sense. Like it's prepped. We just need to tweak what we want and how we want the website to look. And it would obviously take contribution from internally, externally, pictures, I mean, as well, like, pictures of the town, pictures of locations, if you want to put them in there to make, to make it dynamic, to make it look good. But they seem like they already have the kind of setup for you to just add what you want, tweak it to how you want it. And from what I understand, it was kind of like a setup price, for upgrading our website. It wasn't like, okay, now we want. The only thing I would say, like William said, is different features that we would want. Like if we wanted to do something like we currently do for paying bills or something, then that would be a different feature. Or records requests, and it would be a different feature, obviously. But currently we have some platforms in place that are doing that. Like recreations was another one that they talked about. We could add a module for recreation. So there was add-on modules that we could put in there, but the base model would be just upgrading our website to what the current platforms are doing out there, and adding a lot of those capabilities with, especially with like ADA and making sure that we're compliant there. They had a lot of those features already set in place in a sense.
Well, Just one quick point. I mean, it did sound like they have 50, 100, maybe significantly more than that, different sites. So, certainly we could look at, other sites and say, hey, we'd really like it to look like that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, like I said, they have different, setups already that you can say, okay, well, this is what, Ashland has. You like this, and how do you want to tweak this and make it look like Southborough in a sense? So they already have a lot of that ready to go in a way.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
think
it seems to me that the motivation for a website project is that we've deemed our current website to not be approachable in some number of ways, either approachable or useful or some combination of the two. And it seems to me that the most important consideration starting off is, what do we want to do to make it more approachable and more useful, and how do we get there? And if the new platform is the way to get is something that will assist us in getting there, that's great. But it seems to me that the target is not the new platform. The target is the new website. And it almost sounds like we lost that for a second.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I think that this is good. Basically, we need to make sure that we have included within the quote very clearly what is included, what is not included, and from whatever ARPA funds, and basically when we go back to the select board and say, here's the amount we would like for this ARPA project, it should be inclusive of not only the upgrading of the basic site, but also the redesign services, whether it's included automatically in the upgrade, or whether we, if they have UX folks on board and designers on board, then they'll do this work, or it's something a pay for add-on that they can do, or if we need to find somebody else to do it. But yeah, to Larry's point, we want to make sure that the ARPA request is inclusive of all of the design and customization work to solve the citizens' grievances with look and feel and functionality of a website.
I guess one reason why a number of sites, especially in Florida, have moved to this product is that they are try and be fully WCAG compliant. There's been a lot of lawsuits against against towns because they didn't feel that the websites were accessible. So it's been proven in the fires of of the Florida legal system, I guess. And obviously that means that it would probably, be able to deliver the accessibility that would be required, and maybe also the ease of use.
So yeah, let's make sure that whatever quotes we get, make sure it's very clear about what accessibility capabilities it has built in versus what we need to do in addition to it. Like, is it auto magic? Like, if we just upgrade this and magically everything we put on it is accessible, we don't have to worry about anything else? Or is there still additional work that we need to do for accessibility? So going back to Larry's point, like what's included, as long as it's very clear what's included and what's not, so we know what the end target is.
The one thing that he did mention, and again, it's obviously going to take more meetings and discussions on it, but he did mention that they have that almost pre-built in the background to kind of check on that stuff, but a feature similar to the feature that William and I discussed at the SPAC meeting is actually an additional feature, kind of that accessibility icon being on there and being able to read things and report on things and stuff like that was actually an additional feature, according to what I remember him saying. I would have to, again, more meetings to kind of understand that part, but it seemed like that even that piece was an additional piece to it. But in the background, the website should be doing that in a sense of like making sure that it is compliant, but not have that additional feature where it's kind of like reading things for you and presenting things for the reader that's looking at the site.
Right. You're referring to the Reach Deck product. And with respect to the Reach Deck product, the SPAC voted to use some of their unspent 2021 fiscal year budget. So this is something within the control of the SPAC to obtain a 1-year license for the Reach Deck. Now, You've probably shared some things, Jason, with the rest of the group about ReachDeck. It sounded like there were two pieces. One is the toolbar, but the other is a set of tools that could be used to assess our current system. And maybe it would be a good stopgap, and it's also maybe a good learning experience, et cetera. So, as you're saying, it might be that the same functionality that we would get with ReachDeck today, and literally today or tomorrow, because of the end of the month, but that functionality could be then might also be available, maybe for a little extra cost or whatever, in the Civic Plus platform.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so it sounds like more discussions will be had, and we'll get some clarity about what is included versus what is not included, and what do we need to have fully included to meet both our accessibility needs as well as our usability desires, etc. I think we should definitely start incrementally, do things little by little, but let's start with actual benefits. Well, hopefully minimum requirements being improved usability and improved accessibility. Long term, I think it's a good aspiration to move towards integration of additional town sites. That's the ultimate goal. I think usability will improve if we do so. I did, before the rec department moved to their current system, which is MyRec, I had a discussion with them about this hypothetical long-term goal of having a simple, consolidated, easy system for all town sites. And I mentioned to them at the time that Civic Plus had a rec capability, a rec module. Unfortunately, they had already completed their review and had been very impressed with the capabilities of MyRec, that they did not want to delay their movement to MyRec at the time. That they said they could possibly be open in the future to migration. But again, it comes down to whether Civic Plus can really meet all of their needs. And so we'll just have to do this on a module by module basis. I would love to see a catalog slash menu of all of the modules they provide, and see which ones we might consider using within the town for future add-ons.
I guess the other issue would just be that the town uses a number of different packages, et cetera, and I guess we'd want to make certain that if we did go with a new Civic Plus package, that it would have a sufficient easily used interfaces, that if we wanted to link other software that's being used in the town, like the building permit system or whatever, that could be linked in easily.
Yeah. So does the new Civic Plus seem to have ability to integrate more easily with third-party sites?
Don't know. I don't know. I mean, that's kind of you sort of have to get deep in the valves a little bit to make sure. I guess one other point I just bring up is that in the past 6 months, I was for the SPAC, I was looking at warrant articles from 2018 because there was some funding that was kind of still hanging out there. And it turned out that not all of the warrant articles that were from the last 5 or 6 years were actually available in the current system. I had to go directly to Jim Hegarty. So I guess my point would be that, if we're talking about conversion, it's probably not just what we have currently available through Civic Plus, but there may be some back conversion of things that have not lurked online yet, right? And also, to that extent, PDFs that are not accessible that may have to be converted, things like that.
Yeah, that's a whole beast in and of itself. Yeah. Okay, just want to close out this accessibility topic, and it sounds like the Accessibility Committee has already voted to use their budget to pay for this basically additional service, web service, which basically continuously monitors your content to monitor for accessibility issues. Is that correct?
That is correct. My understanding is that since it's the SPAC budget, it does not require the approval of the board. I mean, in a sense, we already had the approval of the board, right? You know, Matt, you've spent budget from MTC. You didn't have to go back to the board to get every little thing approved again, did you?
That's correct. I mean, we have,
Okay.
well, with MTC itself has a budget, and
So does
anytime we
SPAC.
spend, yes, the budget the MTC budget is specific for the needs of MTC purposes, not for town tech purposes. The MTC's mandate, though, is to review technology expenditures across the town. Even though a variety of boards and departments have their own budgets, one of the goals and one of the purposes, and as part of our articles of incorporation, is that what they're called? Basically, our mandate is to review tech spend across whatever department across town, so that to ensure that there's consistency and that people aren't spinning up their own new websites and registering their own domain names, etc. So I don't think this is too much of an issue because we've already talked about this. We already talked about a need in the past, in past meetings to solve this challenge, this problem. And I think we even talked about this particular spend, that committee had some money that wanted to use that before the end of the year. So I think we've already discussed that as a committee. So I don't think there's any issue. I would love to find out, just as out of casual interest, what, if anything, does the school system do? So I'll turn it over to Ryan for this question. What does the school system do for accessibility issues? I know most of the content is hosted off of Blackboard, but does Blackboard provide accessibility monitoring capabilities? And for any other websites that are linked to, like I've noticed on the school's websites, the early childhood link off of departments goes to a Google site. And so do you do much in terms of monitoring for accessibility needs for kids?
Yeah, we subscribe to a vendor named Site Improve that basically spiders the sites in terms of accessibility standards. I'm all for cutting that subscription. There's plenty of no-cost open source accessibility checkers for public and private sites out there that are available. Currently going through a website refresh on Blackboard with accessibility being a trigger. So I'm going to keep that vendor hanging around for a little bit.
Okay. Ed, I assume that, Will, when you did the research into different vendors, basically there's a comparison of different options, including possibly comparing what the school system had been using.
Oh, no. No, I was just looking at Civic Plus and trying to understand more about what they had. Now, as far as, let's say if we want to go into a more of a vendor comparison, then that's really going to be an extra effort, right? Because, there's a lot of vendors out there. And, my foray was, what incrementally could we do? Now, in some respects, the Civic Plus, going with the next iteration of the Civic Plus product is also more of a, what I call an iteration, because it's really the same organization, same people. We know pretty much what they can deliver and how they work. If we were actually going to dive into a new vendor, that would probably be a much larger.
I was sorry. I wasn't referring to a new vendor for the website. I was referring to a different vendor potentially for the accessibility monitoring software.
Oh, no, I have not done that. I mean, the gentleman who just spoke about the school board and about, open source products, from what I have heard and what I have seen, there are a number of products that will do that. Another guy who's looked into that quite a bit is Tim Litt. So, I would say that we would definitely want to speak to him, because I think to some extent he's already got a spider that goes through, or at least is looking at, new electronic communications that are coming out.
Okay. Well, all this to say is, we appreciate Ryan being on our call so we can learn from the schools, and the schools can possibly learn some things from us and collaborate, as opposed to just choosing independent technology and each one doing their own research and figuring out what tools are best, etc. I mean, we're all on the same team. We're a member of the same town. Let's make use of each other's knowledge about options here. So sounds like the money for at least for this year is spent, but let's definitely keep that in mind in the future. I'd love to hear your experience, Ryan, as you evaluate open source and other tools, how it goes, to see if you've been able to successfully supplant commercial software or commercial services. So yeah, keep us appraised of how it goes. Okay. Anything else on the website discussion?
The only other thing I would say is, Jay, let me know, what we can do to help. If you want me to post something in one of the forums to get some residents to do a focus group or something like that, we can talk about how we can support you in getting those individuals for the requirements definition.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely want to get what the residents want, because at the end of the day, it's your website. So I really want to know what changes we need to do to make sure that everyone else is satisfied. I'll definitely reach out to you.
One question would be, what do we see as our next steps here? That it sounds like Jason is going to go ahead with the reach deck, right? That's he can gain experience, and he's got the money. Fine, let's do that. I guess then the question would be, what do we want to? How do we want to proceed, or do we need to think a little bit more about how we want to proceed in terms of moving towards some type of website upgrade or update or whatever?
I'm sorry, I must have missed something. What is Reach Deck?
Reach Deck is the web service, cloud service that monitors your website for accessibility.
Oh, that's the one that SPAC has agreed to fund?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I just didn't know the name. Okay.
Yeah.
I think we're still waiting on some more data from Civic Plus, right? So they've got to get back to Jason with the cost of option 2. They also need to supply some more information about all the different modules and the actual proposal. Once he has the proposal, then it sounds like we'd be in a better position to be able to evaluate whether we wanted to move towards option 2 or look further at option 1.
Okay. And I've been invited to a couple of webinars by Civic Plus. I'll be glad to forward those invites. I don't think they would mind having more people if anybody's interested. So is that sort of, to wrap it up, is that, we're going to be waiting on Jason. He's got more information coming. He'll get back to us with that information, I guess, at the next meeting. I'll send out these invites to webinars, which are on modules of theirs, admittedly, but, would probably be good background and understanding of how this thing fits together. Is there anything else that we want to be doing at this time?
No, I will definitely, at least on my end, as soon as I gather more information, I will divulge that information, whether it's by email or during our meetings. But yeah, whatever other info you want to shoot at me as well to dig into, let me know. And then I have a little bit more ammo when I show up to the meeting, my follow-up meeting. I think it's next week is a short follow-up meeting as far as pricing goes and stuff like that. So definitely.
Yeah. Speaking of ammo, just sort of to expand on that. I mean, as part of the SPAC, I attended some Massachusetts Office on Disability training for the weeks of June 8th and June 15th, 5 hours each day, where they were going over accessibility requirements like the Architectural Access Board and, federal law and, state law, et cetera. And everything that they cover is really more about physical accessibility. It's not about readability for people who have partial sight or blind. It's not about accessible communications. And the assessment that was done by the town was also focused on those areas of physical accessibility. And one thing I pointed out to the SPAC is that we paid like $60,000 to get that evaluation, but we don't necessarily have a roadmap. We don't have a roadmap as to what accessibility for electronic communications really should be. Now, one thing I sent out today, I don't know if people looked at it, but it's a page that I found from Massachusetts government on their web accessibility standards. And that's probably not a bad place to at least get some ideas, make sure that we're meeting that, because obviously, one thing we want to prevent is people complaining that the town is not, for whatever reason, is not providing accessible communications. And that's really sort of a big aspect of going to any type of new website.
Yeah, it's good. Okay, great. Good discussion. And yeah, I'm really excited to find out what we can do to move this forward and put together a comprehensive proposal that includes all of our needs for ARPA funding to move forward with both the accessibility and usability issues of the website. Let's move on with the vendor standardized technology vendor question list. Angela, where are we with that?
We sent it out last time, and I didn't receive a lot of feedback with suggestions or comments. So it's basically still in its current format. If anyone does have any feedback about the draft that we circulated last time, I'd say please let me know. Otherwise, I think we're at a point of trying to put it into like a prettier format that we can submit to the departments. That's where we left that off last time.
Sounds great. Yeah, I did have some few thoughts I need to I want to put those down in writing. But thank you. All right. Have we covered all the accessibility topic? I think it's sort of intertwined with our website. Will, is there anything else on accessibility that we need to cover for tonight?
I don't think so. I think I think we're fine for right now.
Okay, thanks. All right, town technology status update strategy, IT budget uses, and so forth. Jay, do you want to bring us up to speed?
Well, some bad news. I'm still waiting on switches. Servers are on hand, still sitting at public safety inside of nice boxes. But I am still waiting on switches. They were supposed to be in June 16th. I got an email on June 23rd, I think it was, or around the 20th or something. Yeah, 23rd, telling me that it is, at first they were saying it may not be until August. And I went back at their throats in a sense. It was like, what? So apparently they are, from what I'm understanding, they're sitting in some storage facility and have not been released. And they're trying to push it on their end to get them released sooner. So still waiting on the switches. Yeah, I've already done some of the preliminary work, pulled the reporting together, VLANs, IP addresses, assigned IP addresses to hosts and stuff like that, within the documentation that they presented me with to kind of go through all of that. And that piece of it is done. We're just kind of waiting for this, for the equipment to come in so we can move forward and get the tech on site and assist with getting that stuff installed. On a better note, I have an employee starting next week, so there's that. So definitely an applaud on that one. Looking forward to that and hitting the ground running with a lot of key items to kind of take off my plate and it's going to obviously take some time for us to see the pressure relief a little bit, but definitely looking forward to getting there. Also, I don't know if this is part of this same topic, but also I had a meeting with Matt today and Joe about cybersecurity risk assessment. Good conversation about steps going forward and trying to get this done with Matt and Joe as well. But also I presented to the select board as well as briefly spoke about with you guys with trying to reach out to a third party vendor and having them come in and do this as well. And as I said to Matt and Joe, I hope to kind of work on this in tandem. So they can do their reporting and we can do the reporting with the company as well and kind of come up with an end solution and see, where we're lacking in the areas for the town. I believe it is a positive thing, no matter if it's the vendor and working with the MTC as well. Gives us a double check in standards to see where we are. And I did present, I did save the proposal inside of that documentation folder for you guys to review. But
thanks for sharing that. And just so for everyone's awareness, the reason why Jason mentioned that a third party is desired here as opposed to doing our own assessment, because I volunteered to do assessments. This is what I do professionally, is because our cyber insurance provider has made it clear to us that a independent audit is desired for their cyber insurance policy, and that it's basically as part of the policy they would like to see an independent review, not just an inside out or us doing our own review. Is that accurate, Jason?
Yeah, that's correct. And it also just gives us, the assurance of that third party company, their assurance that they're presenting what their facts that they're presenting. That if anything did happen, we could at least say, hey, yes, we went to this company. This is what they presented us with. If we got hit, we tried everything we could, possible to make sure that, that this didn't happen. So we took the proper steps in those efforts as a time to make sure that we were protected.
What kind of cost are we talking about?
The cost currently is about a little bit over $12,000 to do 12 assessment.
What was the number?
12,000. I can give you the exact number. I'll email it to you, Larry, if you like, but it's about a little bit over 12,000.
Now, what is the scope of the assessment?
I'm hearing.
We're getting feedback, Joe, from your side, I think.
Okay, sorry about that. I was just wondering.
What is the scope of the assessment?
It is all departments entirely, all applications that we use, all of our network equipment, servers, switches, firewalls. So it's an entire scope of of the town to see where we are.
It's basically that they are using. I took a look through it. They are using this CSF framework, which is same thing I was planning to do. It's a very basic framework. It's not it's not like a full NIST 853 or 171. It's a lighter weight, but still very comprehensive about all systems, etc. So that's what they're planning to go off of as the NIST cybersecurity framework.
And how long will that $12,000 protect us for, or satisfy our insurance company, I guess, for? Is that once a year, or is that once every few years, or what?
It can be a once a year type of scenario. But we kind of see where where we are in another year, especially if there are corrective actions that we need to take. Then we definitely want to see where we're at in a year from now and recheck it again. To see, and it could be a bi-yearly thing once we have a better scope of where we are. That's not talking about obviously pen testing and making sure we are secure in that sense, because that would be an annual thing. That's something that we should do annually, just making sure that our network is rough and tough in a sense. But yeah, at least for the first couple of years, we definitely want to make sure we're especially whatever we're presented with things that we need to correct, then we want to see if we've made those corrections over the last year and where we stand going forward.
Yeah, and as I discussed with Jade, whatever we're doing here is actually going to be fully complementary to what we're going to be working on, and we will ensure that there's a comprehensive annual, like I will ensure that there's a comprehensive annual cybersecurity review done, working with Jay and the department heads. What we're doing here is meeting the needs of our cybersecurity insurance provider by having an independent audit. So this is not the only thing we're relying upon. Joe, did you have a comment?
Yeah, just wanted to clarify with respect to the scope, since Jay, you'd said all departments and applications, and then a bunch of the self-hosted stuff. Does that include the not self-hosted websites email?
Yeah, yes, it does. It also includes Office 365 and any other type of third-party solution that we're currently using to make sure that they meet the standards that we need to meet as well. Yes. And I did discuss that with them in the presentation that, I talked about what we currently use for, public safety, what we currently use, for our emailing service and all of that. So yeah, definitely.
I sort of come back to the question though. I mean, this is to satisfy our insurance provider, which is very important. And do they want this done every year? What are their requirements for this kind of audit? It's not just once and done, I would imagine.
Who are you referring to? The insurance company?
Yeah.
I mean, I would not say that it would be once and done. And again, I would have to kind of get more clarification from the insurance company as far as like, is this like an annual thing, or is it a biannual, or is it every 3 years, or is it something that we need to do consistently? And as Matt had referred to earlier, and also in our meeting, it is something that we kind of need to check on annually anyway to see where we are
Right.
as a standard, right? I mean, we definitely need to be in the best place for the town, and for for all the confidential information that we have.
So that's a great question, Will. We're going to be reviewing the insurance policy. That's one thing we discussed that Mark has access to, is the insurance provider policy, et cetera. Basically, review what the requirements are, and I'd love to see more details on that, inclusive of like what is our again, this is nothing we'll discuss in the full board, given sensitivity, but what does the cyber insurance policy look like? How much coverage do we have? Have we adequately quantified our risk in terms of expected loss and the loss probability in a given time period? So these are all things we need to look at to make sure we have right sizing our cyber policy.
I would just say it sounds like we're picking up a new cost stream that's not insignificant, right? If we're talking 12,000 a year or something like that.
Yeah. Though granted, that's probably not. I mean, if that's a cost of doing business, the cost of getting insurance, then that it is what it is.
It's a small.
But you're right.
Paying if the contrary did happen. So it is something that we definitely need to look at for future budgeting. But it's definitely a small price to pay versus what we could potentially have if something did go wrong. So,
well,
I do agree with you, William.
Is this our first review, and are we currently without insurance then?
No, we are currently with insurance. It is the first review that I'm aware of. At least I don't see anything in documentation in the past of us having this type of assessment for the town. If I'm mistaken,
basically a new requirement that they've injected. This
is it a new requirement?
Yeah, basically they injected this time about upping or renewing the insurance.
It was part of the requirement to make. It was actually part of the questionnaire. It was asking, are you having a penetration test, pen testing? Are you having a cybersecurity NIST? It was all part of it, which kind of it alleviates like the pressure in the sense of saying, okay, at least they're following these standards, and if they're not, why are they not following these standards? It was actually part of the questionnaire as well.
You actually started going one of the directions that I was going to ask about, and that is that there's clearly the process of doing some regular assessment I mean, whether it's annual or 5 years, it doesn't really matter. But the question is, are there also requirements for ongoing proactive efforts? You know, do they basically say, you know, you have to be doing this on a daily basis or a monthly basis, or you must be, you know, watching for this kind of attack, or you must, you know, have tools in place to prevent this kind of attack, or, you know, things that are happening daily as opposed to happening once a year, once every 2 years or 5 years.
Yeah. The cyber. I would love to hear, yeah, Jay, what your understanding of our current insurance provider and their requirements are, and obviously, as we discussed, learn more about what they're providing, etc. I work quite a bit in this business, and I've had this discussions directly with insurance providers, with brokers, cyber brokers, and with risk quantification engines, and in general. The whole industry is sort of upside down right now, right? They are paying out more in losses than they're collecting in premiums. So they're literally doubling, tripling, in some cases even higher than that, their cyber premiums, because there's so much risk, and you know, especially the risk is growing almost exponentially. So the cyber insurance providers are getting more concerned about not just the one time, and to your point, Larry, continuous control monitoring, where it's a very, very much analogous to like your progressive auto insurance, where you can plug in a little module into your OBD sensor, which will monitor your driving. If you hard brake or hard accelerate, you get dinged on your insurance. Well, the cyber insurance providers are partnering with outside-in security monitoring companies, as well as with some like the big four auditing firms, to say, look, if you're willing to undergo a very painful audit, intensive inside-out audit, and or if you're, you know, we'll put these probes monitoring your network using threat intel, monitoring what controls you have in place, etc., monitoring your posture on a continuous basis. And if you do something, you know, if you do something that's highly risky, they're adding clauses to the contracts which will either allow them to drop your insurance or raise your premiums. So yeah, the answer is they're getting more, I shouldn't say intrusive or invasive, but they're getting a lot more inquisitive about what your actual cyber posture is on a specific control by control basis.
Yeah, in my experience, a lot of the dovetails completely with that, and we've seen a lot of the annual assessments move more towards methods and procedures and training validations versus just the strictly network elements, and the network elements are much more active and much more moving to essentially a partnering as part of your CI/CD kind of pipeline.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So yeah, related to this, I think this is a good jump into schools. I'd love to have the similar discussion with how schools. Well, first of all, any updates or what are the latest projects from school IT that are going on in terms of upgrades of technology, and related to that, what do schools do for cyber insurance as well as cyber audits, etc. How is security governed?
Where do you want me to start, Matt? It's kind of a loaded question, and I got a lot of answers to all of those.
Yeah, it's huge. Wherever you'd like to start. Yeah.
All right. Well,
maybe this simple one, like this general tech. Any fun, new, cool tech that the school is deploying or upgrading right now?
New, cool? No. No. In all fairness, the school districts are trying to catch up to maybe even 2015 in terms of best practices, equipment, network infrastructure, server infrastructure, backups, redundancies, network logic. I could go on and on about it. But in terms of perhaps the easier one, the answer is in terms of cyber posture. We recently completed a cybersecurity network assessment that was conducted by Hub Technical, the results of which I won't share in a publicly recorded meeting, but they were insightful to some of the opportunities that the districts had to move forward and come up with stuff in the realm of cybersecurity. Initiatives, I mean, for the most part, we're struggling to ensure that we can maintain the one-to-one system. It's always going to be a constant fight year after year with devices going out of date and out of compliance or out of support for the MCAS standardized testing, which is the big one. And then also making sure that our staff have a somewhat modern device so they can conduct their lessons. So those are the big fights right now, just in terms of a public facing subject in schools.
What is a one-to-one system? Is that basically individually allocated devices, or what is
that's a device per student? Yep.
Oh, okay. And right now it's basically allocated Chromebooks. Is that correct?
There are some iPads that are floating around still in the lower grades, but in terms of Chromebooks for the most part, and we'll be moving more towards Chromebooks as iPads begin to sort of fall out of support, and as building administrators kind of welcome them into the ecosystem. Yeah.
And do schools buy the Chromebooks outright? And if so, what is the life expectancy? How much are they, how are they amortized across? Or do we lease them, or what is the?
No, they're bought outright, or they're purchased on grants. Life cycle on most Chrome OS systems, at least in Chromebooks, are about 4.5 to 5 years.
Okay, that's actually longer than I expected. Of course, I'm guessing it's all dependent upon how well they're treated in the hands of.
You've got about Southborough, I want to say, has about a 15% non-return rate in terms of damage. Northborough, around 18 to 20% of them don't come back year after year. Yeah.
How many devices are we talking about? What's the rough order of magnitude?
Well, if you remove the Algonquin students, which devices are provided on a long-term loaner basis, should they sign up for it, or as a day loaner basis, and we just talk about Northborough and Southborough schools, which I understand is the Southborough meeting, but my purview is all of those towns. About 3,000 devices need to be in service, roughly, give or take a few hundred.
It'd be one thing if you could just all keep them locked down, chained down in a lab where they could be physically controlled, but no, these are literally all mobile devices that are constantly being subjected to.
And I don't know how it got broken. It got broken.
I'm sure we could spend hours listening to the fun stories of various ways devices can die.
Are the cameras disabled?
They are not. No.
Probably are used.
While remote and hybrid learning is still kind of fresh in a lot of the educators' mind, they're not disabled. They expect the children to. My big fray right now is to get just in terms of remaining COPPA compliant, in terms of children 13 and under, just in terms of their data privacy rights, make sure that those are preserved and maintained. In terms of getting the staff to move away from platforms with camera access that are not COPPA compliant, in which we don't have express parental consent for those particular applications. That's the fight now. Well,
I guess the good news here is that we're clearly moving away from any right to privacy, so you don't have to worry about that much.
No.
Okay, I'm still going to worry about it for the 13 and under.
No, we'll. It seems like the nation is waking up in terms of privacy, and so I think I fully expect privacy laws to become stricter, and we will follow suit. We will probably learn from other other states, California, Germany, etc. But yeah. Okay. So I'll touch base with you, Ryan, afterwards, but love to offer our services. For example, Joe is one of the core network engineers at Google, has many, many years experience of networking, physical, etc. And likewise on security, that's my profession. So I'd love to offer our services to help out however possible the school district, and so
He
forth.
gets paid by the click.
No, I wish. Okay. Any other status updates, Ryan? Anything else we can possibly help with?
No, I mean, I'll there's a lot going on right now, especially now that summer's hitting. We got a lot of things going on, and I could,
That's good.
yeah, I could be more specific when we got a lot more time. But if you're interested, we can take it offline too.
Sounds good. And you're completely right. For anything cybersecurity related, we don't talk about it in public forum. If we needed to talk about it as a full committee for some reason, we would go into executive session. But we don't have a need to do that right now. Joe will be working with Jay, and we're creating some formal documentation on and discussion within this offline group of the network infrastructure, physical network infrastructure, including lines that the town of Southborough owns that run right in front of various schools. And some of the synergies we've talked about in the past is possibly interconnectivity, or making use of high bandwidth connections, even sharing connections out to the internet, if it would save schools and or the town some money and improve reliability. Even if it acted as a failover, seems like a benefit, especially if we have something on a pole literally going right in front of a school. So,
agreed. Yeah.
So we'd love to get your thoughts and brainstorm and collaborate with you and how we can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get together.
That actually does raise a topic that I've raised in the past, and I still would like to see us address at some point, and that is a map of our fiber infrastructure.
That is something Joe. Yeah, Joe's going to be working on, and that to be sensitive, obviously.
Right. I mean, we spent a lot of time on that when Tom was first putting it in, and I know that I think he ran like 96 pair of fiber along Cordoville Road from the public safety building to the town hall. And then there are various tributaries that go off to various other places. And then we ran to, I think one of the police radios, and we went to the DPW, and we went to the rec facility, the South Union School. But, there's all of these pieces, and, Jason probably has it in his head where it all goes, but I've never seen it on paper. And I think that that would be really helpful in terms of planning where to go with that infrastructure next, because we really do have a lot of latent capacity there, and it's really hard to figure out how to use it if you don't know exactly where it is.
Yeah. Top secret information. Can't know it. No.
I distinctly hear a volunteer there, right, Larry?
Yeah, I hear that too.
I'm happy to help. I've spent a good part of my life drawing network maps, but it'll take some time, and I obviously have to work with Jason to do that. So I'm not necessarily trying to put something directly on his plate, but just partially.
So Joe's, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe's going to take a first stab of creating some diagrams or some information. But yeah, Joe, feel free to work with Larry on the network side.
Yeah, definitely.
As well.
We were talking about something rudimentary, just getting some of the data that is currently kind of disparate, getting it collated into something that'd be meaningful and hopefully also helpful as Jason onboards his new staff. But if we want to punch it up to something sexy with some GIS mapping, that'll take. I'm totally happy to take some effort, take some help there.
We used to joke all the time. I remember we used to actually develop and maintain network maps. You know, I was in the Ethernet switching business for most of my life, and we used to actually get and maintain and draw network maps for our customers, because something that we learned somewhere along the way is they did not have maps of their networks. And they would say, we can't get to New York. And we would say, okay, which switch in New York is New York connected to? And they say, well, we don't know. And they say, well, can we see your network map? And they'd say, well, we don't have one. And we used to laugh about it originally and figured, well, it was just one or two aberrant customers. And we found out it was almost all of them. So we got in the habit of actually drawing them ourselves, so that when they called customer support and said our network, you know, we have a site down, we knew what their network looked like. And this sort of harkens back to that for me.
There's some standard templatized versions of Q&A and mapping and so forth that I frequently did during the big M&A boom, when M&A was people who actually had infrastructure versus virtual cloud.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's good. Well, wonderful. We'll definitely use both of your experience creating diagrams and documentation. Thank you. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to a few final topics here, or additional topics. I think we possibly would discuss them in the previous meeting, but I think Larry, you put them on, and we weren't around for the previous meeting. Useful topic for supporting electric vehicles. Is that your suggestion to discuss, Larry? No. Will, is that yours? Or Joe?
I think that came from when I was down with COVID. And it was more of a question based on, I know some of the larger MBTA stations in more of the outlying burbs have electric vehicles that are electric vehicle charging stations, and the maintenance is, I'm not sure how it's managed between MBCR and the municipalities, but I didn't know if there was any interest or appetite or any data based on previous surveys regarding population of electric vehicles in the town, if that would be a useful service similar to internet transaction safety zones that are at the public safety building or any other town facilities. It's pretty much a exploratory question whether that's come up at all, or if that's a piece of infrastructure that's a future topic, not really relevant today.
I'd love to learn more about everything you said, including like the I guess the internet transaction safety zones. I guess that's a physical place. If you're going to be selling something on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, you go do it in front of the police station.
It's a parking lot. It's a parking spot with a sign.
And did they actually have a
Yeah,
sign?
we even had it at the other. We had it at the old site before the new site.
I didn't realize that.
Yep.
And so what is the proposal for support for electric infrastructure? My understanding, the MBTA is fully responsible and accountable for all of their services, and the town has little capability to influence their decisions. I could be completely wrong.
Well, I was not aware on the MBCR, MBTA, and municipality relationship. I was just made aware, like I think it was Senator Eldridge was agitating to get, I think it was Franklin, all their chargers were dead, and it's like, hey, we don't have any chargers. Do we have a lot of electric vehicles in the town? Do we even know? So the question is, do we even know if we have a significant population, and if that population would care about the town facilitating additional services for them, similar to I know that's through the library, but the hotspots, yes, people have connectivity, but the town residents find it a useful service periodically to use. Do we even know, have we asked that on previous surveys? Maybe it's hey, let's park this for next survey to determine population of electric vehicles in the town and if people need more support than they have today.
Yeah, we've never asked it on a survey. I think it's a great question to have on a survey.
Yeah, I think that would be an excellent question on the survey.
and to think about like what are the possible town support for electric vehicles apart from simply charging, town provided charging stations at town buildings. I'm guessing schools included, right, for school staff, etc. Sorry, going back to you, Ryan, quickly. Have the schools given any discussion to electric vehicle charging stations for staff and/or faculty, staff, or students?
They did. I wouldn't put my hat in that ring. No.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So yeah, Joe, it sounds like a great opportunity for a future survey question to see if interest for town support. Now, I'm guessing any electrical vehicle charging infrastructure would come at a high cost, and we need to be conscious that there will be residents, very much analogous to the municipal owned fiber discussion. There are plenty of residents that would be strongly against town provided electric vehicle charging. Though I think, if it's a town infrastructure, like a town facility that they're parking at, to do business or transactions at a town facility, to me, it makes sense. But I'm sure I know there will be some residents that come out and say, well, then you're competing with, commercial charging, and what prevents somebody from parking their car there every night and that type of stuff. So anyway, something we probably should brainstorm about, and I'd love to get your thoughts on that, Joe, as we think about what questions we would ask public and so forth. Okay. Next, cell coverage holes. Is that also from you, Joe?
Well, it had come up in previous meetings, and I know we've had some email threads discussing holes that have been brought up in surveys. And I just didn't know if, with our current charter, other than perhaps gathering data and presenting that to the select board for go agitate with providers or agitate with state regulators, what exactly power or role we would have in this case. Gather the data, determine the heat level of the resident agitation, and bring that forward. Is that where we'd be?
That's where we are, yeah. And we could either lobby the select board or state regulators or the cell providers directly. We can give them a call and say, hey, look, we've collected this data, our residents are not happy, etc. Though, in my view and understanding of how the mobile providers work, as well as the shared antenna and operators, because nowadays antennas are shared between mobile providers, they have so much data already, right? They're pulling data off of signal noise ratio, off of all mobile phones as it is. It's baked into LTE protocol to provide feedback to the antennas, and including location data, so they know where the gaps are. And it's mostly is a commercial discussion about, is it worth adding additional antenna elements and pointing them, or worst case is trying to find another location to lease antenna space, which is incredibly difficult within our state because of a variety of reasons.
I just wanted to say I'm on the cable TV committee as well, and I would just say that the cable TV committee is definitely not any committee that can work on this issue. Our purview does not cover that at all.
I guess I had a question, number one, and that is, and I think you just answered it. I assume that the cable companies probably have a map of the town already with basically signal strength indications, per data point, you know.
I think
location.
I think you're conflating two things. I mean, there's the cell company and there's the cable company, right?
Well,
And the cable company has maps of their cables for TV, but I've never in any way, shape, or form heard of any cell coverage maps.
all right. Well, I don't think we're talking about cable TV.
No, we're
here.
not. No, I
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that's why the cable TV committee is not your guy.
We're not talking about cable. It's purely mobile operators. So sorry,
But
Larry.
you know, understanding, you know, I have no idea how many deserts there are in Southborough. You know, I know, for example, there's one in Westborough on Route 30, just as you come under Route 9. You know, if you're coming from Route 9 up towards Yeoman's, that area is almost goes to zero. I mean, I can be talking to somebody and they disappear for 5 seconds and then they come back and then they disappear and come back. And then finally, as I get to about Yeoman's, they come back strong. I don't know how many regions there are in Southborough like that. But, you know, one of the things that becomes interesting now in the world of 5G is starting to plant small cells in some of those deserts, rather than worrying about putting big macro cells in various places. I think the landscape is changing a little bit in terms of how you solve those problems. You know, if there's a severe problem, and I don't know if there's a severe problem, you know, I have cell coverage, decent, not terrific cell coverage by my house. But if there are issues and, you know, we can determine whether people are upset, then, you know, there are potential, you know, not instantaneous, but potential solutions.
Complaints were definitely coming from a very specific area. It was the roads around Pinecone Lane. There's a certain section of Southborough, right? There used to be a like almost like a gourmet fruit stand that sold Christmas trees on one side of the road, and it's that whole neighborhood on the other side of the road that they've all complained on the survey. I posted something on Facebook and asked them for some more data, and they all came back and said they've reported it multiple times. Their coverage is zero in their house. They have to leave their house to be able to use their cell phone. I mean, it sounds like it's just absolutely terrible there. I didn't find anybody who had bought a repeater or been able to try to solve it locally for themselves.
Given that Verizon has the town wired for fiber almost completely at this point, it seems to me that if they were really interested in solving the problem, they could solve the problem.
Sure they could.
And maybe nobody's complained loud enough. I don't know.
Well, that's what the hypothesis is, you know, I guess the question to Jason is, you know, do we have a designated, you know, AT&T and Verizon rep that we actually could reach out to? And if we could just get a list of people that would be willing to like sign a petition or something and saying, you know, we're unhappy with the service in this particular area, you know, who would that go to? Who could we potentially petition with that?
Not to mention a bad word, but I'd start with Google and see if any other towns have succeeded in attracting the attention of their providers in this way.
I mean, Tim gave us a bunch of information as well. I mean, it sounds like it's a huge uphill battle, and like the chances of actually resolving it don't seem to be extremely high, but, you know, I think it would still be worth at least giving it a shot.
Right, yeah. Jay, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I at least don't have I don't believe I have a contact for cellular service, I would say. I definitely have, obviously, the Verizon like Fios rep that I would be able to talk to. We have a Verizon wireless rep that we talk to through facilities for purchasing our phones.
Or more of a salesperson, I'm guessing.
Exactly. More of a salesperson, if anything. I know for a fact that there are representatives in each district for this same exact situation, only because when I used to work at North Hill, where they're located at the top of the hill in Needham, Massachusetts, oddly enough, they had a hard time getting signal up there. for anybody. For I know it's weird to say they're on the top of a hill, they would get better signal, but Verizon, AT&T, no matter where you were in the building, they had a hard time. So there was a rep that we would contact, and we would actually we tried to schedule something where they would either install a tower in one of the top higher buildings, I would say, and also have extenders put in those locations from either one of the reps. The problem was it had to do with which which company had the biggest amount of service in that area, coverage in that area. I mean, obviously most of them have the biggest coverage in that area, in every area, but it was like, it was weird because if we asked AT&T, I remember having the conversation with AT&T, and they were like, well, we can't do it for you because we don't cover in that area. We actually piggyback off of other towers. So then we talked to Verizon, and Verizon was like, yeah, we can do that for you. So then that was probably like right at the tail end of me leaving there. They were looking into doing that with Verizon, but it isn't, I know that there is that rep out there for districts. We would just have to find out who that person would be. And if anything, on people like Larry, if anything, to see who those reps could be in those areas.
Do you happen to know what the title at Verizon, the title of that person, do you know what their official title is? So if we were to call, for this town, we need the.
I could reach out to my one of my colleagues from my last place and see what that title was.
That would be helpful, just so we know what to ask. So when we do a cold call, or Larry does a cold call too, or whoever do it, we know we can speak a little bit authoritatively, so we don't get routed to some salesperson in Nebraska or something.
Yeah. Good
or stuck in voicemail hell, voice message hell.
Yeah. You're gonna get rerouted more times with Verizon than anything I've ever met in my life.
Press 7.
It's like, no, I didn't contact you. I have nothing to do with buying a phone. Oh, okay. And then they reroute you to a different place. And
press 9.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty wild over there at that corporate headquarters.
It's only funny because it's so true.
Yeah, it's so true.
Sad as hell. Okay. So yeah, Jay, if you wouldn't mind reaching out just to find the name of the person, that would be to help us get started. And then in terms of giving,
reach out and at least get the title if I can, just find out what it was.
Right, the title. And then
we could do like an online petition or something and have all the people that are experiencing problems sign it, so that instead of going to them with a single citizen complaint, we could actually try to get, because I think the only thing they're going to listen to is if they know that we've got, a decent amount of people that are actually impacted by it.
To that point, it's, you may find yourself fighting the wave of the other side of the aisle, where someone will come out and say, I don't want a tower put down the street because of waves and interference and brain issues, and
they're allergic to it.
Yeah, exactly. They're allergic to it or something. So you could get the other side of that wave where you're creating that petition, and then suddenly there's that same petition on the other side to, no, I don't want that tower, 3 feet from my house, or 3 miles from my house, because it's going to interfere with my kid's education or something. So it's a battle back and forth when it comes to where you install towers these days.
So yeah, I'd say that very, very true. So let's proceed cautiously. I like your idea, Angela. And would you volunteer to create like a little survey and then use the same Facebook group that you've done before? In fact, we have some of the raw survey data. In fact, we still have the raw survey data for people who gave comments. If they wanted to leave their email address, they could. It was an optional thing, so we can, for people who express concern about cell coverage issues, we can contact them if they left their email address. And then let's just see where it goes and see what options are on the table. As Larry mentioned, one of the options would be possibly use micro cell units that are just, very low, ultra low power. But they, if you're already on the tower right in front of, already on a utility pole in front of somebody's house, it's an option, and it's not going to be as intrusive as some 30, 40-foot macro cell that's has a large power footprint and physical footprint and is ugly, etc. Alternatively, some of these companies do have configurability of their existing antenna elements. So on their existing antenna towers, that's their sort of quick, low, easy win, is they just add or tune the existing antenna elements in terms of the width and degree of where the antennas are pointing to add for a little bit of coverage in particular areas.
I'm not an RF expert, but it strikes me that maybe the concern might be backwards there too, because since all of these transmitters are adaptive, then if I need to get to a macro tower that's 5 miles away, my cell phone is going to be putting out a lot more energy than if I need to get to a small cell at the end of my block. And I'm much more concerned about the energy coming out of my phone than the energy coming out of the tower, because it's much closer to my head. So I might be talking off the top of my head here, but it just strikes me that that would be more of my concern than the other. And I think we might all be better off with small towers all over the place, so that my cell phone only has to put out 1 microwatt rather than 4 microwatts of energy or whatever.
That's an excellent point, and I think part of the opportunity we have here, as a committee, is to help inform the public, because that normal person in public would not know that. In all the previous discussions, and people voicing concern about these microcells that they're putting them all over, it's going to flood us with radiation. When reality is we're already being flooded with radiation, and this is actually an opportunity to potentially lower that. So yeah,
it's sort of like all of these people who are worried about the fact that the vaccines actually have chips that are going to allow them to track every place you are, ignoring the fact that you're carrying a number of chips in your pocket on a regular basis that is allowing people to track every place you are. Again, I think people have things potentially have things turned on their heads.
Don't say that too loud.
Hello?
No hot mics.
So great. Next step on that, Andrew, you put something together and we'll do some polling, and then that'll arm us with more information, as well as being able to potentially do some cold calling to Verizon person. And Jay's going to get us a title plus potentially to ask about. Digital access control options for the transfer station. Is that also yours, Joe? That will.
Yeah, I think that came up in some side conversations. Again, this may be a park for future discussions, and it may be no longer a problem. I just recall for many years there was the ongoing drumbeat of out of town use or misuse of transfer station resources, and the method of combating just with staff having to eyeball cars was insufficient. So, there's ways things could be done, sophisticated, not sophisticated. You could do everything from cameras on plates, and of course some quarters will complain about that, even though you're submitting the plate when you get your sticker, but whatever, to passive, I think it was actually Mr. Lidd had suggested at one point passive detection of easy pass and just using that ID and an alignment. Again, that might be a different data gathering problem, but I don't know if it's still a problem. Have we had any conversations with DPW, whether it's worth pursuing or something to just park for later?
Hey, it's probably a question for Jay. If you've heard any concerns or discussions with DPW about their current permitting system, how happy are they with it?
As far as I know, they should be pretty happy with it. They just recently acquired it through the good Lord, I can't think of the name of the website now. I have to look at one of my Viewpoint. That's what it is, Viewpoint. I had to look at my my browser real quick and figure out which one it was. Through Viewpoint, so they just recently added that. It seems to be going good. I haven't heard anything different. I can.
What is that? What is that system? I didn't hear the beginning.
Viewpoint?
I know, what is it?
Is this the same? I know there's construction permits. Is that
Yes.
the viewpoint system?
So anytime you're pulling a permit or,
yeah, we're talking about the permits for transfer. Well, they're not permits; they're transportation passes. The stickers that go on the car
Yeah.
for the transportation. Is it the same system?
Yeah, as far as I know, they're using that same system to charge for permitting now, for getting the stickers.
Yeah. Looks like Mr. Stivers has a comment. Would you mind allowing him to speak, Jay?
Yeah. 1 second. Sorry.
He just wants to make sure that if we have digital stickers, he can get one for his Saturday.
He basically lives at the transfer station.
His Saturday sessions at this transfer station.
I've never seen Sam anywhere but the transfer station. I think he probably has a house there somewhere.
I haven't either, interestingly enough. I wonder now.
My family's calling me trash man now, but I don't know. I've been called worse. Thanks for the opportunity. Very interesting topic in terms of access. Though there are ongoing complaints from residents about, I saw a landscaper's truck dumping large quantities of leaves and trash or whatever without a permit, et cetera, et cetera. And sadly, I guess my harsh comment is DPW tends to be behind the times in terms of technology. And it is really hard to get them to do new things there. There have been proposals for a gated system with readers in the stickers that would open the gates. And I think there are a lot of things that could go wrong with that in terms of traffic jams during heavy use times, et cetera. But the best ones I've heard about are the license plate readers. And so you read the plates and then you deal after the fact with somebody who didn't have a permit and follow up that way. And clearly that's technology that's been around for many, many, many years, and there's a lot of good stuff that you could buy cheaply, I'm sure, to get that done. The Public Works Planning Board is the one that actually ought to be considering that. I happen to be a member of that. Unfortunately, the board is basically toothless. We got a new appointee last night, I guess, but there is now a 3-2 majority on there that is not too eager to take on new things. So I think there's opportunity there, but practically speaking, it's going to be a hard sell in the near term. But I think there's growing pressure from places like the Advisory Committee, Capital Budgeting Committee, Capital Planning Committee, to actually be more active in terms of taking advantage of some of these technologies. So I remain cautiously optimistic that we may get some traction in there. So if I can go back a second on the cell stuff, there is that data out there when we get applications for new cell towers, and they don't happen too often these days, but those guys come in with a coverage map. And so they've got what appear to me as a non-engineer to be pretty interesting data about where the signal strengths are stronger, weaker. And it's usually within modest proximity to their tower locations that they're proposing. But at least some of that data is out there if we could get access to the engineering departments of some of the carriers. My bet is they've done some of those surveys that might be interesting, but I don't know how to find those guys. And per Angela's comment about the Pinecone, Buffalo Run, Maple Crest area up there, that actually backs up on DCR property. And so you're not going to get an antenna on the north side of that, basically. Capasso's, as somebody pointed out, is on the south side of Framingham, or the west side, I guess it would be Framingham Road there. And that's, 15 acres of a farm field. So again, there are no easy antenna locations out there. So I don't know what those guys are going to do near term for signal, but it's something that's certainly worth investigating. And I like the idea of getting a petition and finding the name of the person at the carrier who's the regional VP or something, and sending that person's email address to all 100 people who fill in the petition and say, send a personal message to Fred or Sally and say, we really like to get this done. Sometimes that crazy stuff gets attention.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Drivers. Do you happen to recall when the last time was the carriers themselves came to us for a petition for a cell site?
Pilgrim,
and if so,
Church, when they actually did the crazy thing with the flagpole in front of the townhouse there. I don't know if folks remembered that one, but
Yeah.
we got a petition to add, I think it was 5G capacity up there, as a matter of fact, and they said, gave us the plans that said no visible change on the outside of the flagpole. And one day we came in and they had like about a 5-foot diameter canister sitting in the top 15 feet of the flagpole out there. And this was just before Veterans Day, and they couldn't raise the flag, and the veterans were marching around with their guns and complaining. And finally, it turned out that they actually couldn't reconstruct it. The original response was, oh yeah, we can put it back to where it was, but they'd done so much damage to the pole up there, they couldn't reconstruct it. So they actually had to tear the old pole down, move it like 15 feet to the west, and put a new pole in it that they didn't want to do. And finally, we made noise like we're going to take them to court, and they finally agreed to do it. But we were like, 9 months without a flagpole out there. So it was that at that one, they had some maps of the signal strength, and so I know they've got it somewhere. So anyway.
Okay. Sounds like we've probably not made any good friends there in that one.
Probably.
So
Sam,
with respect to the getting back to the transfer station technology, it seems to me that if people start looking into things like that, one of the technologies that might be worth considering rather than looking at license plates is NFC. I mean, that's gotten absolutely dirt cheap. And, if I could have effectively a My Southborough card, like I have my Panera card on my phone, and I just go like this when I get to the gate, and the gate opens. I mean, that technology is, you get little Stripe things that cost Stripe gives away for doing those. It's so cheap these days. And of course, this has to be outdoor hardened, so it's a little bit more, but that might be, and a My Southborough card in your phone might actually have other uses in other venues in town, not just the transfer station, maybe something at the library or something, some other resource in town that needs resident.
Would that operate a gate, Larry, do you think, at the transfer station?
Why not? You can have a QR code on your back window. My mom lives in a community that she drives her car up, and there's a little QR code on her window. And as she drives by, the gate goes up because it reads the QR code on her window.
That was discussed.
Similarly, there's the QR codes that's in every rental car system nowadays. There's also, existing sticker technology where there's just an inductive coil on the back, and you just hit that when you come to the gate. There's options.
The issue was they talked about a variety of gate mechanisms, and the concern was that the difficulty of the maintenance on that, if it Saturday morning rush time, the gate's malfunctioning or something, you need to have sort of backup capacity to let people in, et cetera, which got a little complicated.
Well, you just open the gate. Just open the gate and let everybody in that Saturday. I mean, what are the odds that that's going to be a problem, really?
Well, sadly, our ability to do those kind of stuff is probably more than you would think. And the other one that comes up is in terms of the QR codes and the phone kind of stuff. I am embarrassed to admit this, but I'm one of the relatively few people in town, I guess, who don't own a cell phone. So you got folks like that out there who you need to figure out a way to deal with, and not a large percentage, but it could be a real resistance point in terms of getting support for it. But again, I think there are many ways we could deal with this pretty effectively. I think it's very, very interesting, very useful. I will continue to push through the Public Works Planning Board, and I think there's pressure mounting on DPW to get with the more modern technology from a variety of places here, and so that could be one more on the list, and I will certainly keep that in mind. Thank you.
So if this is something we can help support, if there's somebody on our side, maybe if we supply you, Sam, with some ideas, and if whoever wants our side wants to do some research into what options are viable, how simply and we can rate them from in terms of their cost, ease of use, cost of maintenance, reliability, etc. To me, an easy one would just simply go with the Easy Pass system, because the Easy Pass system is to be clear, it's both the reader of the device as well as a license plate reader, right? They have both.
Yep.
Every
Yep.
EasyPass place has both built in, and if you don't have the device, it'll read your license plate and send you a bill. And
Yep.
there's no gate, and it's most people already have them already. So if they're already issued, and you just tag along to that existing system, then that.
But if you don't have an EasyPass and you go in, you need some sort of photo thing to see those people and do something about it. Right?
You need your license plate.
License plate reader, yeah.
License plate, exactly.
Yep.
But just as Joe mentioned, anybody who's applying for a station permit already has given up their license plate number. So,
but those who don't, the ones who haven't done that show up with a license plate, you read it and you send them a bill or whatever. So, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
One of the harsher critics of the violators suggested having that license plate reader connected to a large pit just beyond the gate that would open up if you didn't. And a crusher mechanism that would send the vehicle and contents into the pit for disposition.
Or require that you get your car washed if your license plate isn't on file.
Yeah. Whatever, but we digress. I can't resist. Thanks.
So yeah, let's look at options. In fact, I don't know if I may even reach out to somebody at EasyPass to see how easy it would be to, or see, have they done partnerships with municipalities for gated access control to various services? Yeah. Okay, great discussion. That is everything I think on the list of our agenda items. Going back to the first one, the approval of minutes from previous meeting. I just want to say, Larry, I'll handle that. I want to handle that because it was my bad for doing it. So I'll go through the last meeting and take minutes. So you don't have to do that. But thanks for offering.
Matt, I noticed like item 2 or 3 on the, or maybe 3 or 4 on the agenda tonight was a standardized list of technology questions for vendors. Do we want to
we discussed that? Yeah, we discussed that earlier, that Angela had put together a list of standardized questions and was awaiting feedback. We discussed it briefly in our last meeting.
Right. Thanks.
But if you do have additional comments, Angela would love to hear those comments. So feel free to send those to Angela.
Now, are these questions that we would want departments that are considering software purchases to be able to fill out and then talk to us about?
That's correct. Or at least them questions that we're basically empowering the department vendors themselves, department heads, to ask good questions of the vendors that they're pursuing. Now, I understand a lot of this is already in partnership with Jay, and Jay works with the vendors to answer these types of questions. But we're trying to, basically help empower Jay and the department heads with a standard set of questions that we think could be advisable to ask for whatever technology procurement. Correct me if I'm wrong, Angela. That's all. We can't hear you if you're speaking, Angela.
Oh, I just said no, that's correct.
Okay, sounds good. All right, thanks. Okay, anything else for the agenda tonight? If not, let's look at our calendars if we could and find a time for our next meeting.
Question would be, next meeting is going to be July, I imagine, and isn't that the magic hour when the witching hour when Zoom goes away?
Hour when Zoom goes away.
It is the witching hour. I think it's the 15th is the witching hour, if I'm not mistaken. I'm just not even sure if they've made any changes, if anything. Maybe Sam might know something more than I'm not sure.
We continue to hope for an extension. The state Senate passed a bill allowing an extension through the end of 2023. The House legislation that's pending did not have that feature, and a conference committee, I understand, is working on it. So they're supposed to wrap up their session by Thursday, I guess here. So I've not heard any update on that, but there are a lot of folks who've been pushing to extend that deadline, but just don't know yet.
So do we want to then go ahead and schedule, and then we'll just have to figure out if it's in person or Zoom? After the fact. Okay.
Yeah, let's do that. And I know that it's the middle of vacations, etc. I have some vacation coming up, so if everybody could pull up their calendar. I am going to be gone from the 19th for a few weeks. So I want to check to see if who might be available on the 18th. That's a Monday evening.
That'd be fine with me.
I actually have a meeting on the 18th. I'm wondering if I could change that. If that turns out the date we agree on, I'll try to change my meeting on that date and do this one instead. So,
Or what are your times of your meeting? We could also consider shortening our meeting.
my meeting is 7 to 8.
Okay.
So if you wanted to
Plus
do
we
8 to 9,
shorten
I
it
could do
8 to
that.
9, make it a brief meeting for July. What does everybody else's schedule look like? Okay.
I'm not sure about that date. I might be taking one of those long weekends that weekend. It's the only vacation I get, a long weekend, so I might take a long weekend that weekend.
When are you going away, Matt?
What was that?
I'm headed out the 19th. Yeah, and I'll be gone until the August. I'll be back the 4th or the 5th. Could be back actually 4th. I'd be available for August 4th in the evening. But
I'm out that whole week. I'm out the 2nd through the 7th.
so we could just briefly meet without Jay. It's not going to be obviously be as much productive meeting, but we could talk about some of these auxiliary topics to just keep momentum. On the 18th.
Any chance of doing before Larry's meeting instead of after? So doing like 6 to 7 instead of 8 to 9?
Yeah, I could do that.
I'd be happy to do that.
That would work better for me.
Okay.
Same.
That'd be fine with me.
Okay. Ryan, would you happen to be available from 6 to 7? Good. All right. All right. 6 to 7 on July 18th it is. Thank you, everyone. A wonderful discussion tonight. Thanks for your service. And looking forward to speaking with you on July 18th. Have a great night. Well, actually, we have to call the meeting. We have to call the meeting.
I would move to adjourn the meeting.
Okay.
Seconded.
All right, great. So who moved to the motion? Is it Larry?
I did, and I think Joe seconded.
I think, yeah, that's good.
Will Warren says aye.
Okay, let's go right here. Will said aye. Larry?
Aye.
Okay. Joe?
Aye.
Angela?
Aye.
And myself, aye as well. Okay. Thanks.